couple of comments to open. I go back to Gastown before the riot, to Woodward's as a department store, to just a whole range of things. But things that have stayed constant over the years have been that a very large group of people who live in Vancouver just want to live here. They want to have lives. They want to raise their families. They just want to go through life in a really good way. Another group of people, and there's obviously some crossover in there, see Vancouver more as a business opportunity. And so that idea of constant change, of clear-cutting Vancouver, of building our way to some new kind of nirvana has been a constant around here for the past 50 years. You're seeing it now with developments that some people don't want, with issues of gentrification, with all of these, and they're not new. Some of the language has changed, but really what you're seeing here is just an evolution of something that's been going on really for a half century, if not more. Ajay mentioned that I was co-founder or one of the founders of Heritage Vancouver. John Atkin, who's one of the speakers, was right there at the beginning meetings and was the first vice president of Heritage Vancouver. There was a mention earlier of the Loretta Lynn concert in the Chicken Coop in Fraserview. That was part of a really very cool project called Places That Matter that Vancouver Heritage Foundation started up for the 125th birthday of the city. And there was this attempt to come up with 125 locations in the city that would tell the city's story. Not just buildings, not just kind of real solid historical stuff, but that kind of incidental thing, the histoire insolite, as the French would say, that really explains how we got here. Now, I'm going to be the introducer of our 5 great speakers tonight, but just before we get going, there's a matter. The speakers are on this absolute time limit of 5 minutes, and so I'm going to shut up and get off the stage really quickly. The sign that they will see when they get through to their 5 minutes, I'll show you in just a minute. But we have Johal, Jill Kelly, Jason Vanderhill, John Atkin, and Naveen Gurn, who are coming up in that order. And they will be looking down at the front as their time approaches and waiting for this sign. And from the laughter, I guess you get it, the first word being shut and the last word being up. And so with that in mind, what I would like to... Yes, and Anita is going to be flashing this at the speakers. So first off, I would like to introduce Johal, and he works at SFU's Vancity Office of Community Engagement in the SFU Woodward's Cultural Unit. That's us. That's us here. He's previously worked in community economic development, civil society development, and politics. He is currently serving on the Vancouver City Planning Commission, Vancity Community Foundation, and the steering committee for SFU's Center for Dialogue. Put your hands together, please, for Johal.
Welcome, everyone, to the Javid Mafagian Cinema. It's a great pleasure to have EastVanLove here, and I wanted to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. We've just been in this building for a little bit over 2.5 years, and we're already getting about 44,000 people a year going through this building through student performances, conferences, community engagement activities, and it's just been a very interesting opportunity to work here, and we're really proud to be part of the downtown Eastside neighborhood, which is a very special place. Our website is sfuwoodwards.ca, and you can join our listserv, and on Twitter we're sfu_w. I'm going to be talking about the rich militant history of political and social movements, many of which began in the downtown East Side in Vancouver. And the period I'm going to be talking about is from about December 1934 to about July 1935. Whoops. Here we go. During that period of time, many of the after the Great Depression, 1929, there were rules put in place by the federal government that forced people of working age to go out and work in relief camps. And the situation was so dire at the time that there was a strike that happened across the province, and a few thousand people came to Vancouver where they began protesting. At the time, there was serious left-wing organizing, including a very robust Communist Party of Canada, which had a few thousand members. The protests would begin at Oppenheimer Park. They'd often go down Hastings Street, turn at Victory Square, and the protests would end up at what was then called the Cambie Street grounds, which is a parking lot right now, but it's the site at which the Vancouver Art Gallery wants to move. Since today's protests happen at the Vancouver Art Gallery, perhaps in the future they will as well. Once again, when different social movements get together, there's often the question of dreaming big and being tactical. And this is an interesting thing about dreaming big, overthrow the capitalist system, and being very specific. In this case, unemployment insurance, but people are also pushing for pensions and public health care. Many of these things didn't happen in the 30s, but after the Second World War, over the next 20 years, many of things that people were pushing for in Vancouver happened across the country. And also the impeccable fashion sense of protesters. I think it's really important to notice. This photograph is from the Carnegie Center, where people occupied what was then the museum and the art gallery in order to get 3 days relief, and their supporters put food in that basket, and that's being raised into the 3rd floor, and this was a successful protest at the time. The Carnegie Center is still home to the Carnegie Community Action Project, which does wonderful community organizing in the city. After one of the meetings, people were saying, they were blaming the mayor, they were blaming the province. It was really a federal government policy that was forcing these conditions. And at back of one of the meetings in May of 1935, someone yelled, "On to Ottawa." Well, they didn't have a way to get to Ottawa, so they walked down to the foot of Main Street and jumped on the back of trains, about 1,000 people from Vancouver, and started going past Kamloops, past Golden, past Calgary, and their supporters jumped on board. And eventually they ended up in Regina. They weren't able to get a meeting with the Prime Minister. They sent out more RCMP troops to Regina to deal with this. So this is Canada Day, 1935, where the big fight between protesters and police happened. In the foreground is a tar-making machine for road building, and people are literally ripping pieces off and using them as projectiles. And this is another one of that era. Of course, we have a long history of racism, especially in the beginning parts of the 20th century. And at the time, the Anglican Church had a soup line, and at the time, they wouldn't allow Chinese Canadians to be able to use it. And so this was part of the militant organizing that was going on. And once again, just to close up, beyond this period, we've built Greenpeace out of Vancouver when people were dying of overdose deaths and had HIV/AIDS rates of 25%. People organized in a very militant way in this community, and we have the only supervised injection site in North America right now. So we're proud to be part of the Downtown Eastside community, and we're also proud to share some of that militant history, including a squat that happened inside this building before the Woodwards development moved forward as well. Thank you.